Welcome to a new episode of My Dear Kitchen in Helsinki podcast. My guest today is Carlos Henriques, one of the three founders of Restaurant Nolla, Finland's first zero-waste restaurant. Carlos and I talked about the story and concept of Nolla, its development, the steps that brought Nolla to where it is today, as well as the challenges they face and the future. We also talked about sustainability, food waste, using local and seasonal food produce, and personal relationships food brings both in Nolla and more broadly. At the end of the episode, Carlos has a question that will challenge your behavior regarding food waste, and we hope to see your opinions as a comment on social media. Hope you enjoy our discussion. As always, special thanks to my dear friend Ufuk Evcimen for the sound editing. All right, welcome to the podcast, Carlos. Today we're going to talk about Restaurant Nolla, which is Finland's first zero-waste restaurant. But before we start talking about the story of Nolla, the concept and everything, can you please introduce yourself a little? Maybe what is your background before Nolla?
Yeah, so thanks for having me. My name is Carlos. I'm Portuguese, or I was born in Portugal. I have studied kitchen and also actually a little bit of IT and software development, but I really got a thing for kitchens. Kitchens was where I kind of started to pay my studies and my life in the university. And I guess I was really enjoying it. So then I moved to study hospitality management, which was the next thing that I could do. And I never left the kitchens for many years. And then eventually I came to Finland. There was a restaurant called Chez Dominique, which for the ones who might remember, it was quite famous internationally. So I had like 2 stars, and there was top 24 on the San Pellegrino. So for me, it was naturally the next big step was to work on this restaurant. Eventually, the restaurant closed, but of course, I met a Finnish girl, and now I have 2 kids. And then after a while working, I kind of thought that if I can't leave the country, I will need to do something on my own, because that was the feeling that I needed something more than the restaurants that were around. And then I met Albert and Luca, which are the other co-founders, and we started Nolla.
Okay.
And, yeah.
So I want to, of course, talk about Nolla, but before that, start with a bit of a more general question, so that our also listeners can maybe be more acquainted with some terms or some of your ideas. So first of all, what is your definition of sustainability? And as we are talking about a food business, of course, what are the most important aspects or parameters, if you like, of a sustainable food system?
Yeah, so sustainability is a word that is thrown around constantly now in our life. So I think has lost a little bit the meaning for most of us. It's constantly associated with, greenwash almost terms. But basically, sustainability means the possibility for humans to actually live in this planet in the best way possible. So it's actually, we think as sustainable, that is something good for the planet, but sustainability is actually something very selfish. It's something actually that is defined around human needs. Humans need a sustainable planet. They actually need the planet to sustain a few key elements so that our survival is possible. So it's with this focus and really looking at ourselves that I tend or hope that people will understand that sustainability it's fully necessary.
Mm.
What is in practical terms, that is a very complex subject, but of course we can go into it. But then we need to put it in what you can be to be sustainable, what I can be, what governments can do, and everyone needs to do something in different terms.
Mm. Mm. But it's true that it's being used quite a lot now for all, sometimes out of context or sometimes too much, even also for greenwashing in many cases, the term. So that's very true. But then let's dive into Nolla, then the story of Nolla. So so you said that you had met your current colleagues, and you wanted to do something your own. You wanted to start your own maybe restaurant. So how did you decide to create Nolla, and maybe what were the steps you took? Of course, it didn't just start like that. How it improved?
Yeah, of course, this is a bit of a longer story, but so Nolla started with the simple idea that the fine dining world or the restaurant world, I think now has improved a lot. Mm-hmm. But I'm been working on this for a while, and 10 to 12 years ago, when I was working on fine dining, it was a very demanding worlds, in the sense that I was working something like 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that was normal. It wasn't only me. All my colleagues were doing that. And, we put so many hours, so many layers. A product would need to be always the best it can be. Work, it could never be an excuse for a product not to be on its best. Mm. And it's basically like that you work. And at certain points, I don't know if I just got fed up, but I was a bit thinking, what is this that I'm doing? What is the point of having the best taste and round and square carrot on the plate? Am I actually doing something relevant? And with this came the knowledge that sometimes these places, and I think this also has changed since we start preparing Nolla, but sometimes these places didn't really truly respect the product in the best way possible. So what I mean with this is that if the chef decided just to use the white part of the lick, because that was the best, and it was a very small amount, everything else would go to the bin. And for me, this felt that this way of thinking, of course, it was always to deliver the best, but I don't know if that would be necessary the way to do it. And I felt that this was maybe lack of respect to the ingredient, to the farmer, to all the people that live in the planet and that cannot afford food. And I mean, it's a very basic idea. It's not like anything that I'm a genius or anything. And clearly, it was something that kept me thinking. And a few years later, not long, maybe a year and a half, I met Albert. And at that time, I was already really thinking to open my place. I didn't know what or exactly how, but I really wanted to do it. I have done some pop-ups by then. I was cooking some Portuguese food. And Albert, which is the Spanish guy, told me, hey, I had this idea. What if we would do a zero-waste restaurant? And I thought that the idea was genius. And I was really into it. And because there was already one restaurant doing something like this that was called Silo in England, we thought if others can do it, we can do it. Mm. So that made the project more possible. We thought this is even a way to, find investors, find someone that believe in us, because there's one more person in the planet that has been doing it for years, so this is possible.
Yeah.
And then basically I had already by then sometimes had like some companies and done some catering on my own and whatnot. I've done all sort of things. And I spoke with Albert. First, we really would like to have the third person, that was Luca. But then I also shared my experience that I think a company with 3 people take decisions a lot faster. Because sometimes when you have 2 friends, you spend a lot of time convincing each other that you are right. And with 3 people, the decisions move forward faster, because if 2 agree, then you just go with it. That's the majority. And Luca also spoke Finnish perfectly. And he was already our friend, very into nature, fully aware of the same issues that we were fighting for. And on a nutshell, that's how we started the idea of Nolla.
Also thinking about the steps other than after the idea came out, I think you had some pop-ups first.
Yeah.
And,
I can of course also go through that. So after the idea was concrete, we realized that we had zero money. But I always thought that if you have a good business plan, the business plan is made for the money that you have, not for the money that you don't have. So the business plan started with us doing pop-ups to get awareness. Those were really tough. We did one pop-up for example, that was a friend that gave us the space, and we took pictures of his old office. And then we took all the furniture out. We borrow furniture extra from another restaurant. We came in through the night. We built a whole restaurant. We cooked, we served people, and then we carry the furniture all out and put the things of the office back with pictures. So these projects were super hard. We were sleeping on the floor and working like crazy. But it was really good because we got the attention of journalists, and people started understanding that the idea was actually possible. And then the second phase, it was that we were quite lucky, and eventually someone was able to just rent as a space for a period of time. This meant that we wouldn't need to have much money to get in, since the space was already with furniture, with equipment. And at that time, we basically just went all in. And we thought that if we have 8 months, we need to gather much money as possible so that we can have a permanent location. And we actually did a crowdfunding also, so that we thought that we could have many shareholders, and that people would feel that they own the restaurant, and that eventually one day we could even share the profits with them, with the people that believed in us the first. And it went super well. We were very lucky. People really like it. And we were quite successful. And then, of course, eventually we lost the location. And then it was a really tough road. We had some money, but not very much money, as I've been to discover. And look for a location. It's not the easiest in Helsinki if you don't have the background, if you don't know the right people, if you don't. So actually, we got a friend of mine that is Finn, Swedish speaking, and he was doing all the conversation for us, and he was actually going to see the space and offering the money. And then it was a lot easier because people were a lot more able to negotiate with him than to negotiate with us. And then eventually we're able to get the space that we are right now. It was something that I never ever thought that we would even have that kind of space. I was even against going to see the space because I thought that was too good for us. But somehow my friend was able to pull like a great deal. I don't know how he did it. And we're able to get the space with, of course, loads of loan, but and it's going quite good since then. But yeah, that's how we did it.
Yeah, and it's a good space. It's a good location. The space itself is beautiful, and that was really nice that you could have it.
There's a lot of stories. It's been a restaurant over I think 80 or 90 years. It was the first pizzeria in Helsinki. It was this garlic kind of place, famous for over 30 something years. Prior that was like a Jew restaurant, a butchery. So has loads of tradition, like grandmas, grandpas, and young kids. Everyone remembers that place as a restaurant, and that's very important for us. We actually have put some pictures that we have of the old restaurant people that have worked in that space, kind of to honor them, because they basically passed the torch to us. We're trying to just keep doing what they did.
So we have said that, and you have said that, okay, Nolla is Finland's first zero waste restaurant, but the whole concept, the whole idea of Nolla, can you just explain it, or including like what we mean, what you do for to be zero waste and so on?
Yeah, of course. So the main and core idea is that denormalization of waste. And what I mean with this is that every time on your own, when you threw something away, if you would be at Nolla, you would think, this is not good. How can I correct this? Or how can I minimize this? And this is basically the main thought, because I was actually having a conversation with my team over this and yesterday, and it's like this: if you every day threw half a kilo of fish away, if one day you actually threw 200 grams, you think I did a good job. But in a restaurant like Nolla, zero, it needs to be always the aim. So you can never accept waste. So if there is waste in the kitchen, this means that we have something wrong that we need to fix. Some process, some ordering, some storage, even the entire menu if we need to. But there is something that needs to be fixed. So with this kind of thought, and this is for minimizing packaging, minimizing the ingredient itself, the storage, the usage of the whole ingredient. So with all this in mind, that's how we develop our menus, make our orders, basically plan everything always. Minimize. To maybe, this is a little bit vague, so for people to clearly understand this, how do we do this? So first thing, it's Nolla, everything is local. It wouldn't need to be. I would say that you could maybe buy ingredients from other countries if they don't grow in Finland. I would understand that. But we just define that everything needs to be local. And then we speak straight with the producers. We try to avoid middlemen, because middlemen have interest in packaging and farmers don't. So if I tell a guy that produces potatoes, can you bring me in some bags and I will give you the bags back, it's normally very easy for them. It's quite straightforward. Yeah, of course. But if you speak with a guy that is selling you potatoes that you want to give them the bags back and then they need to take it to the farmer, it's already, they don't have the interest because it's already extra work that they are adding. Transportation might not even be worth it for the carbon footprint point. So for us, that's how we do with vegetables, and that's very easy to, or a lot easier to understand than with other things. So for example, with fish, then we use the middleman, but then we needed to develop a packaging for it. So all the fish by law needs to be transported in styrofoam boxes. So styrofoam has these little holes, which means that it's actually by law not washable. You cannot wash styrofoam. So this means that every fish that is transported in EU, it's actually transported in a single-use box, which is made from plastic. So how we went around this, it's actually just putting a washable piece of isolation inside of the box. So this means by law, we still have the styrofoam out that protects the fish and make sure that the temperature is right. But we have the inside where the fish contacts that is fully washable. And that's how we've been transporting, for example, our fish. So this was sort of by developing a thought how we could improve and move this forward. We did the same, like develop packaging with coffee and with many other or a few other companies. After the packaging, we do have a software called Avikimestari. It's not perfect, but it's good. And we also been trying to develop a software on our own, but it's a lot more complicated than it seemed to. But basically, Avikimestari measures all the waste that we do in the kitchen. And why this is important, because then you actually have real data what you are throwing away and how you can tackle this. And then the waste that we still have, because for other restaurants, this wouldn't be waste, but for us, it is. And what I mean with this is, imagine that you used all the fish and then you have the bones, and with the bones, you make a stock. The bones don't disappear. So we still measure this as waste. And it goes to our composter. But because we have a composter inside of the restaurant that is able to compost all the organic waste that we have, then we're able to give this compost as a fertilizer back to the same farmers when they come to pick up the boxes, and they can use it in their own fields. And this is sort of how we have tried to minimize our carbon footprint.
I watched some of your interviews and videos while studying for this interview, and you have it's not just about waste, but you also talked about other things related to the restaurant, if I understood correctly, like even your clothes are if you can also talk about those parts of your restaurant, because it's a whole system that you created.
It's we always try to think about a new product. I normally speak about things are a little bit harder for us because we really want to think about the impact. You know, if you buy a napkin, and you need to consider, do you take the napkin that is made from recycled plastic bottles, or do you take a new napkin that is made 100% from linen? And then you need to consider, but the recycled napkins are made from plastic. This means that when we wash it, we will release microplastics in the sea. And this one is made in Finland. And then the other linen is made in, I don't know, China. And we cannot track the linen. So what are the other options in the market that would give us a third? So it's actually, in a way, we always will. We also have some carbon footprint. We are not zero carbon footprint or zero waste, but it's basically when we do a decision, we have it really thought through, at least the best we can do. And because of that, yes, our water glasses were bottles collected from the Finnish presidential palace, then we cut on half. And those are our water glasses. Our clothes are old bed linens from an hospital that were painted and cut it and made our clothes. Our towels that you clean your hands in the toilet are also old towels from hotels and robes that we just cut it and make some squares. So yeah, there's a lot of thoughts in many process, not only on the food system.
Yeah. So you already have a lot of experience now for a few years at least with this whole concept and the actual application of the concept. From here on, do you also sort of help or guide other establishments, not necessarily related to food, but any other establishments that want to be more aware about their carbon footprint and so on? And if you do, can you give maybe some examples of how?
Yeah, I have done some consultancy projects in the past. There is a little bit of a gap that we are trying to focus. So there is a few restaurants that have really minimized their waste, and they really thought about it, at least food waste. They are not thinking necessarily about their carbon footprint, but they are necessarily thinking about economic benefits. And these places that have done a great job are places like McDonald's, IKEA, like all the franchising. Have really thought how to minimize their waste. They have very small margins on their product, and they become really good at this. The only thing that would solve this problem would be if they would have a tax on carbon footprint. Then we would actually fix many of the issues that we have with these places about giving like plastic for everything. And the other issue that we have, and that's the one that we've been trying to focus on, it's small and medium restaurants. So small and medium restaurants, which by the way, it's still the majority today, don't have time to have to insert every single product that comes in, and they don't have things automatized like that because thanks God, they still buy fresh ingredients. And at the same time, they don't have $500,000 to put in a software and a machine that would do this for them. So as Nolla, we've been really trying to focus on these restaurants to teach them that if they would invest a little bit on minimizing their food waste and to denormalization of the waste in the kitchen, they would hopefully even save money. And that they actually would be, while saving money, they're actually saving the planet too. But it's been really hard for us, and it's been really hard to make the project last after I'm gone. So at the moment, we're also trying to develop a software that would help and that would control more this process, that we can get people really into a long phase with this. But yeah, it's really hard, even with the customers. The customers do not understand their effect on carbon footprint. People like very narrow ideas. People just like, I want to reduce my footprint, I'm vegan, I do this, I do that. And again, I'm not against veganism. It's not that. I'm not against pretty much any of those, because I believe that the subject is a lot more complex than that.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that is that complex, but it is. Because you still would need to fertilize the ground, and you would need to think, how do I get that fertilizer? And fertilizers, most of them still nowadays are petrol or gas based. So if I would have a cow and the cow actually produces manure and I'm able to fertilize those soils with the cow, then yeah, I would have a smaller carbon footprint than a full organic farm that doesn't have any animals. But it's very complex too, because if you only produce cow and you are mass farming it, for sure your carbon footprint is through the roof. And then it's better that you would actually buy fertilizers made from petrol and produce great. So it's a really complex matter. And of course, because of that, the customer is also not understanding. And most people don't even understand what we do. They might ask now, hey, can I have a salad? I'm like, no, you can't. Sorry. I mean, outside, there's no salad growing at the moment. We use 100% finished product. So no, there's no salad.
Yeah, I want to get to that point, especially in a minute, about the seasonality of the Finnish climate, especially. But what you said about I was involved with a farm throughout most of last year, a vegan farm, but of course a farm still needs some animals, which they didn't really get the produce of to like they didn't milk the cows or anything, but they had the cows to graze the land, and the cows were free to graze the land, and they had some chicken that they saved from other parts of the country. So it's not like, okay, because you're vegan producing food collective farm, it doesn't mean that you can't have animals. You shouldn't have animals. You need them, but you are also, of course, creating a more ethical space for them, and also, your relationship is much more different than another form.
And the problem with animals is even more complex. That we have destroyed the whole ecosystem as humans. So we can't just say that, for example, we won't kill any animal anymore, because that would mean that we need to move out of Finland, or we couldn't have roads either, because there would be deers everywhere, because they don't have any natural predator. So they will start coming to the cities. The population needs to be controlled, because we kill the other animals that will control the population. And it's the same with fish, for example. Most fish, it's very endangered. But there are a few species that we have too much.
Yeah.
And that's because we killed every other fish that were eating those fishes.
Yeah.
And when we try to feed these fishes to people, some people never even heard of them, or they think that they are trash fishes, or they don't taste good. And this is really like all these misconceptions that we try to fight. But yeah.
But as you said, it's especially the diets we have. This is a very, very complex issue. It can't be just like, okay, I'm vegan and I'm done. Even when you are vegan, what actually you are eating as a vegan is where your vegan food is coming from, and all these things are also effective. I'm a vegetarian myself, but it's because I've never liked eating meat, like the texture and everything. So I always loved vegetables and grains and stuff. So, but I totally understand other people who have balanced diet, as long as they try to be aware about what they are eating, let's say.
Yeah, I think that's I mean, if I would need to say between doing nothing or being vegan is a lot better.
Mhm.
But there's no doubt about that.
Mhm.
But what I mean is that that's still not a long-term
Yeah.
solution. We need to look at the whole concept, and it's a lot more complicated than just not producing animals at all. I
Yeah.
mean, we do need to think that an animal, it's an exception, and that's something that we really need to
Mm.
focus on. I took my entire team another day for a field trip. I don't think you can even do this, but I don't care, because what we did was that I grew up in a farm. So I took them to a farm and we bought a chicken and we killed the chicken in the front of everybody, and we clean it. And these are chefs, they cook with meat every day, and fish, and it was really interesting to see the mood on everyone coming back. Everyone was so quiet.
Mm.
Everyone was, and it's really interesting because it was just a chicken. These guys process meat every day. They see dead animals every day, but the truth is that they don't. They only see meat every day.
Mm.
They never ever, any of them, saw an animal die. And I think this is also part of the problem, that we see meat as any other. It's like an apple.
Mm.
There's no difference at all. And I think also a little bit of education on part of that. If we could in any way get more together to farms, I think that would help a lot. Maybe make it part from the school program, make it part of the everyone knowledge basics. Know that like really understanding the sacrifice, and that an animal needs to die for us to eat.
Now, you said that you source your ingredients from the local producers. And we talked a little bit about the technicalities that you have when the packaging with the farmers and everything. But I'm always very interested and curious about the social relations that food, anything about or around food creates. So what kind of social relations do you have with your producers? Do you think that you have become some kind of a community? You have long-lasting personal connections, and how it affects the business and everything?
Well, first of all, I need to say that Albert is in the kitchen nowadays, and he makes most of this work. So it's not really me doing all this work, and this is probably one of the hardest work that is done at Nolla. And I will say that we have everything. We have a very good relationship with some farmers that they come to restaurant to see us, even if they wouldn't come to deliver anything. And we became really good friends, and we go visit the farms, and yeah, they're our friends. And we also have people that still say that you are the only assholes that want our products without plastic. And we are doing this specifically for you, and you still want to know where these are from and when these are killed, and you are so hard as a customer. We need to do all this specifically for you. So yeah, there are both. The world is not perfect. It's normal. If you're gonna do something different, you should always expect that people don't want to change things. That's like the nature of humans. We don't like things to change too much too fast on our routines.
Exactly. Yeah. Now we have just you have just mentioned about the how seasonal the products. Of course, your menus, your menu is changing, and it's seasonal. But of course, being in a rather difficult climate for agriculture, which is, in Finland. Maybe some of our listeners, especially listening from outside Finland, and maybe even in Finland, cannot exactly picture in their head like what can be seasonal. Let's say in right now in the middle of winter. So what is Nolla like each season? Can you give some examples of your dishes for each season to give these people a better idea?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's still. So first of all, people been living in Finland for many years. It's nothing new. So people used to live in Finland before there was all these means of transportation for fresh ingredients. So we just look back and kind of learn from the past. And if you don't think you can have tomatoes all year round, most people won't even notice when they come to Nolla that the menu is a little bit different. So in the winter, we'll have more fish and meat. And in the summer, it's so much almost like vegetable based and fresh based. So in the summer, actually, there's loads of products. And it's a really good season. The only problem of Finland is that everything comes at the same time. You don't have many countries in the world where you have mushroom, berry season, fresh herbs like salad, potatoes. It's everything at the same time. So it's not about that you don't have the products. It's that they will have them all at the same time. Where in Portugal, where I'm from, you will have like cabbage now in the winter, and you had like chestnuts in October, November, and so you have always something in season, and it's a lot kind of a slower process, but there's always something. So how we do that, it's winter is very based on roots. So roots, as we know, last very well on cellars. It's nothing new, and they can stay until the spring with no issues whatsoever. Then you can have more flour and pastry products. So if we want to, for example, we have this dish that is sort of like a beetroot with onion sauce, and then we pull it with some puff pastry around, and then we put some parsnip puree, some pieces of parsnip, and it tastes very meaty because the onion gives it this dark roast flavors. Also, the beetroot has, how we cook it, as this sort of consistency almost of kind of something that you need to chew, because textures are quite important actually when we eat. So that would be a very classic winter dish for us. Then we'll have, for example, some made, with sunchokes, which made is the season now. It's a fish that is definitely not seen very well by Finnish people. They only threw it on soups normally. So we offer a very different approach to the fish. We will grill it. We will cook with the roe. We will cook with the liver, trying to utilize all the parts of the fish. We will have, loads of mushrooms that's still available. There's also, for example, this company that grows mushrooms on top of coffee waste called LCN. That produces all year round. So of course we will utilize this. If there's good local grown mushrooms, we will definitely use them. And then desserts, there's still apple. Of course, we might have some more cookie kind of flour, brown butter, more ice cream based. So that's what we would go for. So
the last time I was in Nolla was September 2020. I wanted to come in 2021 too, but I honestly can't remember 2021 anymore. But there was this spruce beer also that was I mean, it was something that I still tell my friends, like, oh my God, spruce beer.
Yeah.
So you also do your own. There's also your own brewery there, if I remember.
Yeah, we also have our own brewery. Yeah, we also produce our own beers. Yeah. It's been like a very challenging process. We're still working a lot on it. I need to say that I don't think we are where I want us to be on the beer production.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean like about amounts. I mean about having a very clear and full control idea of what we want to do, what products we can use, and we don't have the experience with beer that we have with the kitchen. We were three cooks. All of us had been working minimum 10 years when we started the restaurant, so it was very different. With beer is something that we like to drink it, but we necessarily didn't made it. So this has been a more challenging, but people are liking it and we're getting really good feedback. Maybe it's me that I'm not happy yet where we are.
Yeah, but yeah, it's by itself. It's an entirely its own project. Having brewing the beer itself. So,
Exactly. Yes.
But now I want to get back to a little bit, especially like knowing where your ingredient comes from. It reminds me of this thing when we talk about especially kids of today. Well, our children do not know where the food is coming from. What is we talked also. Actually, it's not just kids; it's adults as well. Do not know where most of the time, or sometimes do not care where the food is coming from. So, as an active actor in the food system, especially for the future generations, how do you think we can make the future generations and maybe generations of today be more aware of where their food is coming from?
Well, we have made it chilled. The killing an animal is so chilled of our daily lives that it would be even hard for you to go and see it nowadays if you wanted. So basically, if you grow a chicken and you want to kill it and eat it, that's fine. You can do that. But you cannot go to a farmer and buy a chicken from him and take it home and eat it. And you can't necessarily go see a place where they kill chickens, even because they wouldn't have necessarily also the interest of showing it to you. But also the facilities are not prepared for visitors.
Yeah.
It's an environment where hygiene needs to be at the highest level. So basically, we made it impossible for people to understand the food chain. There are many problems in the world we live on. So I understand this is just one of the many issues. So I think restaurants do have a big force to play here. That restaurants need to be not only this place that serve people, but also this place where people would go to understand what is seasonal, to understand where products come from. And I think as a customer, it would be great if people are not afraid of questioning. I think questioning will demand that restaurants get their story straight, really know where their products come from, and do not trust what is in their website or what is in the menu. If someone says that it's organic, just ask, where is it from? And, how did you got it? How are you sure about that? Because there's no one inspecting that. And at the same time, you will get, because there will be places that know a lot about it, so that you will also understand what you are getting. So I think by making people not afraid of questioning could be a starting point. Of course, we should bring a little bit of food education to schools. It's not terrible here, and that needs to be brought. make people fully understand about how farms work and how do animals live nowadays in explorations that only grow animals, and increase the food culture will also make people more interested on that. We see that the food culture is quite new here. Finland it's like a new rich country. It was a fairly poor country not a long ago, and you can see that reflected on their food history. It's really clear when you travel to a country that used to be rich financially, to the so for example, for me, there's, I don't know how we are going to this, is a little bit further away from the question that you made, but if I can go into this.
Sure.
For me, there's very two clear periods in story regarding like food, and this was previous, like food revolution, industrial revolution, when the south of Europe had most of the money, and you would see Italy, France, Portugal, Spain, because it was very based on agriculture, and these countries had an economy that was very big for many years. And then after the Industrial Revolution, the economic power switched totally to north of Europe. So you can see that these now are the countries where they have most money. Even north of Germany have more money, Denmark, Norway. But the food culture for them, it's something that has, 100 years, 150 years. So they still kind of developing that. So that's why when you go to a fairly poor hometown like mine, which is in a mountain 2,000 meters high, you will have 3 butchers and 2 guys with fish shops and 4 vegetable markets, and here you don't have that. And that's because there's such a big history on people looking for these products. People always did it that way, and people really want to understand. My mom still nowadays know where all her meat comes from. There's no way she wouldn't know where who owned the cow that she's buying. And that's such a different mindset. A little bit of that would be great to bring to Finland. A little bit.
But then again, yes, especially, I see Finland. I've been living here for 11 years. And within these 11 years that I've been here, I've already seen how, especially food-wise, people got more and more interested and curious. So it's also possible to be very experimental when it comes to food and so on. And also, not just Finland, but mostly the Nordic countries are maybe more invested in, the issues of climate change and more environmental friendly production and so on. It's in government's agendas and everything. So do you think being in Finland had some sort of positive effect on your idea and developing on your business? And how do you see a restaurant like Nolla with your concepts and ideals established in another country where these issues are not so much on the agenda yet?
Yeah, I think Nolla would work in any country, because when a customer comes to Nolla, it's not very good advertisement for me, but I'm going to say it. When a customer comes to Nolla, they don't necessarily care if we are sustainable. It's the same reason. I'm going to give it it's the same reason when someone buys a Tesla, they don't buy a Tesla because it's an electric car. They buy a Tesla because it's cool, because, it's fast, because electric cars have been here for many years. But Tesla's made it cool. People come to Nolla not because it's sustainable. People come to Nolla because it's cool
Mm.
because I hope that we have a good food and good service, and it happens to be sustainable. And sustainable is a positive thing, don't get me wrong, but they don't come to Nolla just because it's sustainable. Because it wouldn't be cool, the food wouldn't be good, it wouldn't be in a good location, it wouldn't have the right price. The sustainability wouldn't be the thing that pushes through. So what I mean with this is that Nolla would work anywhere because we are just hopefully trying to be a good restaurant. On another hand, Finland gave me the possibility to have to manage a company fairly easy here in English. And I gotta say that has been a very massive advantage that I think the Finnish government allows foreigners, that they won't need to be necessarily through the process of speaking fluently the language to establish their company. So that would be the main advantage I would to Finland. Yeah, but I think Nolla itself, if you forget the language factor, would work anywhere.
Yeah. And well, now this question is something that we cannot avoid, I think, but how did the pandemic affect Nolla? Did it affect somehow?
Yeah, of course. I mean, economically it was really tough for us. We don't have like big investors, a part of the crowdfunding people. But we're still very strong in the fact that we've been very successful in the months that we're open. And these have allowed us to keep like looking ahead and hoping that, we won't be closing every 8 months. So in other words, when the government let us be open, we're doing very well.
Yeah.
When we need to close the doors, it's a very heavy project and a very big space with a central location to have closed, which cannot leave from takeaways or anything like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it did affect us. There was another projects that we would like to do and things that would like to move forward that have been on hold. But I still have time, not in a hurry to go anywhere. And we will see how we can do more in the future, especially on moving these to other restaurants. I think that would be our main goal, that we've been struggling how to pass the message that this is possible to other restaurants.
So finally, what is next for Nolla? I mean, how do you envision Nolla's future? And also, you said that you want to, of course, pass this knowledge to other restaurants, but in general, how do you envision the future of the restaurant business?
Yeah, Nolla would like to, first, Nolla still has a few issues to solve on his own house in terms of infrastructure. It's an old house. So yes, it's been a restaurant for many years, but that also comes with disadvantages. So we do need investment on our own house. We do also hope to open another restaurant that would be more focused on carbon footprint and not only on avoiding packaging and waste, to see what would be the angle on that. And we really would like to develop these consultancy projects, maybe make an app, make a way to make it very concrete for very small and medium business to track their waste. And when I mean waste, is normally waste is very seen as what you threw in the bin, but waste starts when you buy things in the supermarket and when you eat and when you store things, and it really only ends when you throw things away. So I really would like to develop more clear process for restaurants that would help them to order things, to store things in the fridge, to utilize and then eventually to track their waste. And also, I mean, in the future, this is very far away, but also homes, I think in the homes would be great, the same idea.
I was just going to ask, like, how about, because there is a lot of food waste in the households. So if you would somehow want to guide that, or there are a lot of already, of course, food waste related projects that focus on households, but somehow guiding people also through that would be an important step, I think.
No, and there's been a lot of development on apps also for like tracking food waste, which I think is also the wrong metric. But I believe that even that I don't say that I would never do it, I believe my biggest potential is really for restaurants. Mm-hmm. That's what I've been doing. That's what I kind of really like got to understand a little bit more maybe than others. So I have a very competitive advantage to show others what we have done and what we have achieved. So even that I would like to move that to households, I feel that's maybe I'm not the best person to do that, or at least I could participate on that. But I don't think I would be the moving force of the project. So I think it would need to be some other company which would have another understanding about the households. And I could be a small drop in the solution, kind of giving my input and what we think. Yeah, I think it would be more in this direction.
Right. Okay, so these are all my questions. Do you have any final comments or words? And do you have a question for our listeners to think further after listening to this episode?
I think my main question for home is, have you denormalized the waste that you have home? Have you accepted that you will need to throw things away in the bin every time that you throw things in the bin? You know, is it a extremely necessary thing that you are doing? Or is it something that you got used to it? And you should really think this through. Because the answer is you're probably throwing something away that you shouldn't, and you just accept it. I think that would be the main question for the listeners, and to the advice that I would like to give to them is to not be afraid of question things, to not be afraid of being a little bit different, and question only not on the restaurants but on the supermarkets, on their suggestion box, on with their politicians. It would be so great if we would have a better and more spaces for farmers to come to sell their products, and that we would have a better like product in our cities, and that cities would be more welcoming to farmers. I think that should be something that should be really like thought through.
Right. Okay. So thanks for this interview, and good luck with the continuation of Nolla, and I hope we have the pandemic more or less behind us. I don't know. I can't even follow the restrictions anymore, so I don't know what's going on so much anymore. But I hope that is at least more or less behind us, so that we can just focus on what we already had, all the issues we already had. So
I mean, we've been doing very well. We are like, people are finding us already. So we've been very busy every day. So it looks like it for us at least. Yeah.
Good. Okay. So have a nice rest of the day. It's again a very great day. And hope to see you another day in Nolla, maybe.
Yeah, please do come. Thank you so much.
Yes.
For making me able to share this. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want to know more about the blog behind this podcast, check out www.mydearkitcheninhelsinki.com and find it also on Instagram and Facebook. Have a delicious week.